everybody, welcome along to episode 72 of Percussion Discussion. First of all, please check out our social media. You can find us as usual on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our world famous YouTube channel, where you can find all episodes past and present. And if you wouldn't mind clicking subscribe, it helps us. And this way you won't miss any of the forthcoming episodes. If you prefer to listen on the go, then you can find all of our conversations in podcast form on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So you can download those and listen at your leisure. If you wouldn't mind leaving a very short review, that helps. So if you could do that, I'd be very grateful. On to today's guest, an incredible British independent drummer who has been scrambling our brains and minds for a long, long time as one of the Rhythm Magazine regular contributors with his Technical Difficulties series. And I know there's some incredibly challenging stuff there, some stuff that I've finally mastered, not too many though. A gentleman that's played for the likes of Republica, Phil Hilborne, ABC, so many more. An incredible drummer, and I'm thrilled to have him on the show today. So please welcome the fabulous Mr. Pete Riley.
Yeah, you're welcome, Matty. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
No, it's great. And I have to say thanks to our mutual friend, Mr. Adam Parsons, for setting this up. It's very kind.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great having a chat with him the other day as well.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. So it is New Year's Eve, so I appreciate it even more. It's not the evening bit, so you know, for all the concerned viewers, it's not the evening bit. It's lunchtime.
Yeah, the drinking hasn't started yet. Yeah.
Oh, hasn't it? Oh, no, I'm joking. So look, Pete, it's great to we have our paths have crossed before. Many years ago, a thing that's a name that a few people hopefully will still remember, Steve Washington put on. Do you remember that day back in North Wales a long time ago?
Yeah, I was just thinking of Steve, what a fantastic drummer as well. Yeah, that was, I was thinking that was maybe nearly 30 years ago. It was probably the early days of me playing Premier drums. Yeah. And I thought it was like a drum clinic event, but as I think you said, it was Steve was playing with a band, wasn't he? Yeah. And I just went on before and played to a few tracks. Yeah.
It was great. It was a great event, and I remember your particular. It was an all-day thing, and you'd done a couple of masterclass sessions, and I remember mine's being blown, and it's just like I can never do that. I remember some left foot clave stuff that you were doing, and
oh right,
I seem to remember you playing on a right-handed kit. Maybe that was because obviously people were getting up and playing. I don't know if that was. Probably.
Yeah, I was probably just switching floor tom, snare, and hats. Yeah. I mean, if I had my time again, I wouldn't be left-handed. Yeah, I would have learnt the right way. It's a drag. Yeah.
That's controversial. Yeah. The right way. Depends which way you look at it.
I think it was John Riley that said to me about, in his day, you only got right-handed drum kits. You only get a right-handed piano if you want to think of it. And I was like, a right-handed drum kit. And but you've got the tom holder on one side and the right cymbal holder on the other. That was the way they came as a four-piece kit. Yeah. And so, I think there's something in that. But yeah, it's a drag being a lefty. Yeah.
But I mean, that's even more impressive, the fact that you've switched the kit and still been able to demo, what you were hoping to teach. I say hoping because I think most of the people were just like, including me, were like, nah, not today. The fact that you've just done that, completely opposite-handed to what you're used to is even more impressive. It really is. And
Oh, thanks. To be honest, the last couple of years, I've actually spent a bit of time working on the open-handed thing again, because it was something I did for a few years. I was working on the New Breed book and the open-handed, and I played open-handed for about 5 years or so. And then when I started studying with Bob Armstrong, I went back to left-handed and started learning traditional grip and sort of left it behind. But I can still play a little bit on a right-handed kit, but it's funny. It's things like the hi-hat foot that just don't work at all. Yeah. But other stuff I can get around just about. Yeah.
Sure. Well, you mentioned the open-handed. Is there any Simon Phillips influence there with playing open-handed at all?
Yeah, massive. Yeah, and it's something I keep switching between. It's just because I like the traditional grip, and the kit is sort of set up for traditional grip. But then I play a lot of rock stuff as well. And there was a band like a covers band that I'd been doing for about 12 years or so, and I just finished recently, but almost half of that set I would just play open-handed, because if I'm playing matched grit, it feels comfortable playing open-handed. And I love the sort of just the openness and the access to the whole kit you get when you play open-handed. And so I've experimented with having a kit that you could do both on, and but I tend to end up going back to the traditional grip, and yeah. But I enjoy a bit of working on both of them. Yeah, practicing, been getting on my jazz independence, leading with the opposite hand. I don't know why. When am I ever going to do that? I don't know, but it feels good to practice it anyway.
Oh, it's nice to have it in the locker, isn't it? You just never know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, your name. I mean, you're only, I think, 2 or 3 years older than me, but you seem to have been around for all of my life, forever. Wherever Rhythm magazine obviously is the big part of it, and I've always seen your face. It seems like you've been a successful drummer since you were like 6 or something like that, in my eyes, if you see what I mean. It's like you've always been there.
I think it's perhaps it is that rhythm connection, because I was fortunate enough, probably around the time of that Steve Washington event, I did an interview with Rhythm magazine, and it was shortly after that I started writing, and I would have probably been maybe 22, 23, and so that's nearly 30 years, and it wasn't continuous, but certainly the last, probably 15 or 17 were, and as we spoke about briefly the other day, it's perhaps the end of that era now, unfortunately, but yeah, certainly when they started putting the CD on the cover, it sounds so old-fashioned now, but yeah, I was involved with that pretty much all the way through for, I think maybe it was about 17 years. So yeah.
It's an amazing, I mean, I hope it comes back in some form or other, because it's a big part of my life. As many people who I'm sure will watch this, especially in the UK, will that moment when it dropped through the post box, or you went to the newsagent to pick it up, was a big part of, and the thought that it might not happen anymore is horrible.
Yeah, it's really sad, and I think it was really important for the UK drum community as well. And obviously you had the big global players in there as well, but there was just that sense that you really knew that it was put together in the UK, and yeah, it's a real shame if that is it, but we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah,
fingers crossed. But you and Colin as well. I've had Colin on the show, and both big parts of shaping drummers such as myself, and lots of others. The way they play, and I used to really get into trying some of the things. It must have been quite a lot of work for you in particular, because you put some tasty stuff together. It must have been a lot of work and a lot of thought gone into it.
Oh, I loved it. It was like the best job in the world for me, and I think perhaps as I said to Adam, there was, I made that decision to focus on that and perhaps not do the touring and that side of playing so much, but I just really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed having that sort of creative outlet for ideas that I'd been working on. And I just filmed another YouTube video this morning. I just can't help myself. I just enjoy doing that stuff and putting it out there, because I just like that process of developing as a player, and I think that as you do that, and obviously I teach as well, and just that process of improving, and I like to hopefully help other players as well, but there was obviously more than that in terms of putting rhythm together as well. There are a few learning curves along the way, like the transition over to video and things like that, and transcribing some of the tracks and playing some of the tracks. That was a part of it as well. But yeah, the bit that was me, the technical difficulties bit, I love that outlet. And so I'm just doing a bit more of that with YouTube now.
Oh, that's good. I mean, from a personal perspective, I preferred it when I had stuff transcribed in front of me. I can absorb it easier if I see it written down. Sometimes from a video, I forget things in a heartbeat, you know, and I'm sure you've heard this before. If you've got it written down, I can do it slowly, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, take it up to speed at some point, you know.
Yeah, I think there are different kinds of drummers as well. You know, you've got all that visual learner thing versus oral and that side of things. And yeah, I agree. I think there is. Ideally, you have both. Yeah, you can see it being played, and you've got it in front of you. On the YouTube stuff, occasionally I've put the transcriptions up there as well, but yeah, it's perhaps something I'll have to a bridge I'll have to cross at some point. But yeah, it definitely helps with the learning though to see the notes.
Sure.
But then always one of the things I thought about with rhythm was when the transcriptions went in the magazine, I often wondered what percentage of drummers could read that transcription.
Yeah, there's always going to be, you know, there's positives and negatives with reading, isn't there, as there are with everything. But I don't know. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I totally get your point, though. Yeah, it's yeah,
sort of putting a track on the music stand and being able to pick that off, and I mean, and also that's just a with regards to reading, a transcription is such a unique aspect of reading. People talk about reading drummers and being able to sight read. It's almost, you just don't encounter notation like that, in the real world. It'd be lead sheets and or perhaps a cheat sheet type thing. Those sorts of note accurate transcriptions. Yeah, God forbid you encounter that on a gig, because to sight read that in every ghost note and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's very different. Well, as is like snare notation as well, for example. They're all different aspects of reading.
Oh, totally. But I remember there was one in particular which really caught my attention, and you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. And it was like an upbeat hi-hat shuffle thing where the ride cymbal was on the quarter, and then the stepped hi-hat was on the at of the triplet one.
Oh yeah.
And it was like it wasn't a halftime shuffle, it was just a full shuffle. And that, to this day, is still one I use all the time. So that's all credit to you, that one, Pete.
Well, no, all credit to Steve Gadd for that. He was the guy I first saw doing that. I mean, he tended, when I saw him play, he would do it with like a 4 on the floor bass drum thing as well. So your feet are basically playing a shuffle. Yeah. And I just loved the sound of it. The fact that you could just go to a quarter note in the right hand, but your left foot is stating the upbeat. Yeah.
Lovely. And the fact that you can actually hear the hi-hat clearly, it's not clashing with the snare. It's just beautiful. It's just a really, it was a cool rhythm. Not easy, I have to say, but
no. Yeah, it's and also if you want to try and get that kind of snap to the shuffle, so it's got that swing and slightly late upbeat. Yeah, it takes a bit to get that feel in there as well.
Yeah,
but it's a great sound.
I'm not going to lie, I spent weeks on it. It's not something I could read it, but getting it to feel right was it was such a lot of work, but it was worth it. It really was. So thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
So look, let's go back to the beginning. Where did it kind of catch fire? For your drums.
Well, I started playing drums at 15, but I was thinking about this yesterday. I was then self-taught until the lessons with Bob when I was about 19, I think. I was 20. And but I'd worked from books and things on my own because I could read, because I played trumpet and cornet from about 10 or 11, something like that. And I had I think maybe about grade 5 music, and so I hit 15. A friend down the road was playing guitar, and I was just listening to a lot of rock music and made the switch over to drums, and that was it. And so, as I say, I got a few of the Gary Chaffee books and the Gary Chester's New Breed, and I'd work from those. And obviously that was the era of all the DCI videos as well. So Terry Bozzio's video and Dave Weckles, and I guess the Dave Weckl thing was a bit of that kind of flicked a switch for me as well, where you just had this approach to playing that seemed quite subtle in terms of what was being played, yet I don't want to use the word technical, but there was a lot involved, but it sounded a lot more subtle than a lot of the rock drummers I was listening to then. Perhaps like Dean Castronova was a massive influence. And their approach to that, it was really sort of bombastic but the idea that you could, there was all this sort of nuanced aspect to playing, and that perhaps is the point where I realized that I needed to get lessons. and that's and just around that time there was Making Music, this free magazine that Jeff Nichols was involved with, and he interviewed Bob and another drum teacher. And as soon as I read Bob's thing, and I know Steve White and a few other players, and then I hooked up with Bob for 2 or 3 years then.
Do you know, I'm just doing the maths now. So you didn't start playing drums till 15, and you mentioned that thing I saw you at that event. That was only 5 years later. You've worked bloody hard in that 5 years, haven't you? You really have.
Man, the practice I did, it's I can't even convey the number of hours I've spent in a room alone with a drum kit. It's to be honest, up to around when the kids came along, like, which I was 30. From 15 to then, it was just crazy amounts of practice. I would say though, I did do the 10-hour day stuff around the time I was studying with Bob, and I was gigging probably about 3 times a week with a good friend of mine, Phil Hilborne, in his rock trio around the country, and the rest of the time I was just practicing and having my lesson with Bob every.
Are we still there, mate? Can you hear me? Hello? Is it my internet that's disappeared? Let's have a look. Oh, there we go. We're back.
There we go. Yeah.
I don't know what happened then. Very strange.
No. Yeah.
You just said you had your lesson with Bob and it stopped at whatever that was.
Oh yeah. So every fortnight I was Friday morning. Yeah. And just great. And Bob just gave me that, I guess, it was almost that insight into, obviously I learned specific things, I had big holes in my playing, whether that be technique or reading or the swing side of things, but it was almost the process of learning that I got from Bob. How you take things apart and rebuild them. And obviously a lot of other things, the discipline and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, there'll certainly never be another Bob Armstrong. I don't think, that's for sure. I mean, sadly, I never got to meet the man, but I only ever hear positive, glowing things about him. As a guy, and a teacher and a player.
And I mean, he was amazing guy. He just had the playing experience, but he had the knowledge as well. But also, I just don't think that time will happen again in terms of tuition like that, because so much of what Bob taught back then, 30 years ago, it was all like the molar system, and it was all a bit of an enigma, and no one could find any of that stuff. And he was pretty much the only guy in the UK, I think, teaching it. And whereas now, there's, I don't know how many videos you'll find on YouTube of, varying degrees of quality, I'm sure. And so that idea of having someone that you would go to that, for that kind of tuition, I think those days have gone, really.
Yeah. I don't think, though, a video, regardless of the quality, will ever replace somebody sitting in front of you and explaining it with a pad and some sticks. I don't think.
Yeah, totally. And just in terms of tuition in general, I think that, because I do some teaching here, and I've seen a fall away, and not just because of COVID, but of students of that sort of level that I was at, the sort of intermediate level, if you like, because I think they've gravitated over to whether it's Drumeo or Mike's lessons or just YouTube, because they've got enough understanding to follow certain things, and so they'll teach themselves. But I think with that comes a bit of a danger as well, where it's a bit like the Dunning-Kruger effect, where they don't necessarily know what they haven't got. They know what they like the sound of, and it's that path of least resistance, so they'll gravitate towards that. And so, yeah, I still think there's the danger without a tutor that you'll end up with big gaps in your playing.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And as far as traditional grip goes, was Bob? Did Bob play any part in that? Or was that something that you gravitated to?
Well, it was, as I said, I just sort of recently been introduced to Dave Weckl, and then obviously Vinny and Steve Gadd, and they all played that way. And as we were going to do the technique stuff with Bob, I thought, I'm going to do that. If we're going back to nothing, I'll start with that. And he said, I just remember on that lesson, he said, it's the hardest thing you'll ever learn to do on the kit. And yeah, I still work on it now. You know, I was over on the pad for half an hour this morning working on it, but and now I'm about 50-50 with that and match grip. And I just like that. When you see like Tony Williams, he'll just switch.
Yeah. And
yeah, the more of that I can develop, that's what I'm after. So it's completely unconscious. Yeah.
Sure. But you said I mean, you can see you've got, they look like Yamaha 9000s. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
So it's quite a substantial kit there. Is that set for? Could you switch on that setup, or do you have to adjust?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, in fact, I did a track yesterday that was match grip. I probably did just lift the snare a touch for the video I filmed with traditional grip, but that's it. The rest doesn't move, and it looks big, but it's really, you know, it's like I said, the core of the kit is a 4-piece kit. You know, a 12 and a 14, and you know, it's just a few other toms either side of that. I've just gotten used to having the three toms in front and the space they take up, and but as I say, I still like a small kit though.
Well, you say you have a small kit. You have a small kit set in front of that you were saying earlier that you like to practice on.
Yeah, it's actually a 5-piece kit, 10, 12, 14. It's another recording custom. It's a green one. Funnily enough, the laptop I'm looking at you on is set on another green tom. But it's the right-handed kit that I have for teaching here, and so I'll switch that around for me. But just to be quick, I'll just keep it as a 4-piece kit, and that's where I do all my practice. Yeah,
absolutely. Just out of curiosity, if anyone's interested in having lessons with you, can they get in touch? Can you, is that something they can do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You could via I've got the lessons on YouTube or Facebook, or I've got my Total Drum Tracks website. You could go there. There's a contact, or you could just.
I'll put the address up at the end so people can see.
Yeah.
And then they can get in touch because I'm sure.
Yeah. Most
people in the UK certainly know who you are. That's for sure.
Well, and like a lot of drummers over lockdown, I got the what's it called, the video lessons Zoom, going as well. Lessons. So do my camera switch? There you go.
Oh right, cool.
Have I got? Oh yeah. Oh, my overhead cameras. The battery's gone, but yeah.
Oh, that's great. Doesn't that make life easier when you can switch the camera like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The overhead camera is probably the most useful for lessons, I think. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's great that you go to so much effort, so that the user at the other end is great. But what you get back on online lessons is nothing like that generally, is it?
Yeah, I have to say, there's nothing is as good as having the person in the room with you, and you can do all of this stuff. But as you say, if you're hearing like a really distorted sound coming back, or you can't see what's going on because it's not well lit, it's a challenge.
Yeah. And how many times have you said no? Have you got the original sound switched on? Yeah, that's the famous Zoom quote. But look, obviously, teaching aside, you've done a lot of playing, gigging as well over the years. And I remember when you got the gig with Republica.
Oh yeah.
That was going back a little bit, wasn't it? And I remember watching you on TV, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool!" You know, how did that gig come about?
That was through Jan Circa, who I was playing with in my early 20s, and that was around the time I got the Premier deal. And he was doing sessions down at the West End, a place called Joe and Co, where also Andrew Todd, who was the keyboard player in Republica at the time, used to do some sessions, and they'd gotten rid of their previous drummer one weekend, and they're in mid-festival season, and it was like they needed someone for Tea in the Park the next weekend or the fortnight after. And I think I was the first one in to audition, and they gave me the gig. Yeah,
because
it was fun.
Go on, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, it was just weird. It was the third audition I'd done at John Henry's, and third time lucky. So yeah.
I mean, they were a massive band at the time, weren't they?
Oh, it was their zenith. Yeah. We did. My first gig was Tea in the Park, which I think was 30,000 people or something, and I had my little cheat sheets there because I hadn't, couldn't commit everything to memory, and I had about, I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 days, and then off to the gig, and so Reading, and it was great, a great experience, and a different approach, because everything was to track. There was no bass player in the band, for example, so so everything was to track, all to click, and but great experience. I did that for I think 2 or 3 years. I think I got the gig when I was maybe 27, something like that.
Nice gig. I mean, what are your thoughts on playing to click and using tracks? I mean, from a personal point of view, I like it. I know I'm comfortable, and I know if something's going wrong, well, I'm with the click, and I know I'm right. Different people have different opinions on it. I'm in my comfort zone with a click. A lot of people, it horrifies them. I don't know. How do you feel?
I think you go through different stages of working with a click, don't you? I think at first, if you haven't spent much time playing to one, it can feel really apparent, but after a while it becomes invisible, I think. And I think what you're saying is you can get that feeling eventually where it almost reduces your workload, because that is taking care of the time. And so I think it's good to balance that out with a good degree of playing that has no click, and so it's back on your shoulders. Well, everyone's shoulders, but mostly as the drummer.
I have and I've said this to many drummers who I've spoken to. If I'm playing with a click, I start to seriously doubt my time now, because I've done so many gigs and tours where everything's been to click, and all of a sudden, if I have to count a tune off, it's like, ooh, how's this going to work? And generally, it's fine, but
actually, the last few years, I've been doing some depths for Tony Hadley at the Spandau Ballet, and their set is roughly sort of 50-50, and so the ones I'm counting off, I'll have the metronome there, and so I just know it's going to be the right tempo.
I mean, and you mentioned Phil Hilborne before. That must have been a great gig to do.
Oh, that was great fun. And funny, I was chatting with Phil. I guess we were probably mid lockdown, and he was saying that he was going through his the gigs that we used to do, and there were 500 different gigs that we would do in the UK. 500 venues, and I wonder what percentage of those are left now. And you sort of think as a sort of cut in your teeth experience, which it was for me. And I was doing all this practice in my late teens and early 20s, and I needed an outlet for that, and seeing how that related to music, and that was great. I played with, as I said earlier, probably 3 gigs a week, and for years with Phil, and I wonder how many of those are left now.
Probably not that many.
No,
I mean, we're fairly lucky. I'm up in North Wales, and we've got some decent venues catering from 100 people up to I think 1,000 is the biggest, on a mid level. and some theatres. So we're quite lucky. They've kept going even through through the lockdown. So
right.
But I know you see on Facebook and on the news that lots of famous old venues just couldn't they just couldn't survive it, sadly.
Yeah. It's and so you have to think for those, the upcoming generations, where they're going to get that experience, or certainly that amount of experience. I'm sure they'll find a way, but I just don't think it will be as easy.
No, definitely not. I mean, I come from my playing was, if you remember the Brannigan's circuit, when Brannigan's was a thing, and the Chicago Rocks and Jumping Jack.
Right.
There was live music. I mean, I'm talking bands 7 nights a week, and I like you, I was playing in a soul and Motown band, and we were out all the time, constantly out, But now people are out once a week. It's like, oh, well, I've got a gig on Saturday, and it's like, oh, blind.
Yeah.
Good luck with making that pay, but good on you.
Yeah. And I think even before that time with Phil, it was, you go back into the I guess like the 70s. Yeah, it would have been like that. And I mentioned about the guys doing the sessions in the West End. I just caught the tail end of that as well, like doing jingles and commercials and things, but no one would dream of booking a drummer to do that these days. Program it up in 15 minutes. And but back then, they would. I remember hearing stories of like Neil Wilkinson being driven around to 3 of those in a day, and But then, the business just changes, doesn't it? Neil's got that great gig on. I can't remember which show is playing on, and. You just find other avenues.
Sure. I mean, but it also, technology moves on, and I've said this again to a few drummers. Can you imagine this lockdown period we've had with the pandemic? Had we not had the remote facilities that we've got now, can you imagine how tough that would have been? Had we not been able to do this or record or do anything? Can you imagine if it was 20 years ago, 25 years ago? It would have been pretty horrific. I mean, it's no picnic now, but
yeah, it's almost incomprehensible. And again, one of the another thing that I was thinking about that relates to that is like the whole sort of Instagram thing, and I guess it relates to the gigging as well now. And you've got this. It's almost like, and I suppose lockdown has been the catalyst for it, but now that the platform for the gig is on your phone on Instagram, and there's a lot of drummers that I look at on there, and they never post a performance video. They're always in their studio like this. And okay, that's perhaps the case at the minute, but I think it has perhaps been the catalyst and accelerated that shift to things working that way. But I do hope that it swings back the other way as well, because because the live thing and interacting with other musicians is what it's about, and it's just a very strange insular world with that you're accessing through your phone.
Crazy. But hey, time moves on, technology moves on, and there's no stopping it, that's for sure. But
no.
Live is best and always will be.
Yeah, and who am I to have a dig at any of those drummers that are finding that as a way of working? It's embracing the current technology, and why not? If, as we said, perhaps the gigs aren't there, or the opportunity to gig isn't there, why not move online?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk rather than drums itself, but which drummers influenced you from an early age? Was there any obvious ones, or?
I think I started off with a lot of I guess they'd call them classic rock drummers now, like Ian Pace, and because I'm from the Midlands, so I grew up with all that sort of heavy rock of Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, and then I started to Vinny Appice, I loved his playing, still do. I think he's just very different to all those other guys, and just a real sense of space and groove in his playing. But
single bass drummer as well.
Yeah, he had a sound and a feel that he's just a fantastic groove drummer, and his playing just really breathed. Then I started to get into the, I guess, more technical players. Dean Castronova was, there's an amazing metal album that it's so metal, but his drumming is unbelievable. Called the band is Wild Dogs. I think it was his band, and it's called Reign of Terror. And he's playing on that. If you hear drummers like Mike Portnoy or the Rev, Dean was doing that 30 years ago, and he was probably 22 or something at the time. It's unbelievable. But then, as I say, I had that a bit of an epiphany. I discovered Dave Weckl, and this sort of lighter, more nuanced, if you like, approach to playing. And so, then, I guess a couple of big sort of influences in between there would be Simon Phillips and Terry Bozzio. And still today. And so then, I moved on to Dave Weckl, Vinny. I had a big Steve Gadd phase, as probably everyone does, and or should. Yes. And then Billy Ward. That was just that sort of sense of, I think it was, I'm not sure what you'd say, what Billy does, just a musicality on the kit. And so that's probably a bit of a crash course. And then more recently, I really like, I probably forgot Steve Smith. That was another big one. Yeah. But I like Tos Zuckerman. That's kind of, and Gavin Harrison. I guess those are two kind of current drummers that I would, I'd like to probably get my playing close to, I suppose.
Well, there's a pretty healthy mix there, I have to say. That's that's some good names in that lot.
Yeah, I guess in short, it's all the virtuosos, isn't it? Really, and
And it's nice to say I've had Steve Gadd and Simon Phillips on this very show, so there we are. So they're keeping good company. And musically, drummers aside, what floats your boat? You've mentioned some of the heavier end of stuff. Are you still into the heavy stuff?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm mostly, if there's music on, it's probably going to be like alternative, progressive rock of some kind. And I played a lot of other stuff. I've done a good number of jazz gigs and things like that. And I think I went through that phase of, and I still practice a lot of my swing stuff as well. But I wouldn't tend to listen to that kind of music now. And I guess I also went through that stage in discovering and appreciating all those drummers of listening to the music that they were playing with them. Let's say Steve Smith, and then I just got to a point where I just don't actually like this music in terms of perhaps the vital information stuff. And yet you hear Steve Smith with Tony McAlpine on the first album that he did with Billy Sheehan, and that's amazing. And so I think alternative proggy sort of rock sort of stuff.
That's good. And have you got anything interesting coming up in the pipeline that you can share with us?
I would probably say no, not really. And the reason is it's been a real sort of transitional period for me, that the last, I don't know, I would probably say all the way through lockdown, really. It's a bit heavy. I lost both my parents right at the beginning of lockdown. And then over that period, then rhythm has also gone, and I quit the band that I'd also been doing for about 12 years or so. And so I've just been going through this process of just enjoying doing some practice for a while. And I'm going to see what comes along, basically. Because through doing rhythm, there are a lot of things of opportunities that I actually didn't pursue because I had the responsibility of doing that. And now I feel like I want to do some more playing again. So, yeah, I'm going to see what the universe brings me.
Well, that's, hopefully we'll get to see you bringing these lovely drums around to a venue near us shortly. And, we'll look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So thanks once again, Pete. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for bringing all the joy and headaches that your technical stuff has brought to us over.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's all meant to be fun. It's, yeah. Like I say, I just still love sitting in a kit and seeing if I can do something today that I couldn't do yesterday, and just the ideas that come out. So yeah. So I'll be doing some more YouTube stuff, definitely along those lines.
So people can follow you, obviously on YouTube. It's a great channel. I've been having a look through for the last few days since I knew we were going to be doing this, and there's some amazing stuff on there. And as you say, with the high quality video and audio as well, which does help. It really does.
Yeah.
So you can check that out, and I guess you're on all social media and what have you as well.
Yeah, Instagram, and I don't do Facebook very much, but yeah, Instagram. Yeah, I tend to put some stuff up on there as well. So yeah,
great stuff. Well, look, thanks very much. Let's hope.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great chatting.
Hope 2022 is a good year for you.
Yeah, thanks, and you.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, Pete.
All right, cheers, Matty.
Bye bye now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.